Next, we will also be talking about the war. The Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, has confirmed a strike on the Rosneft oil terminal in Russia's Tuapse. According to information from our sources in intelligence, SBU drones and other defense forces struck an oil tanker and port infrastructure in the Krasnodar region, from where Russia exports millions of tons of petroleum products. At least 5 hits have been recorded. After the strikes, a tanker being loaded caught fire, as well as 4 oil transfer systems used for loading and unloading ships. Also, last night, the unmanned systems of the armed forces of Ukraine struck 5 enemy electrical substations, including in the Kursk region and in temporarily occupied Alchevsk in Luhansk region. Residents of the Oryol and Lipetsk regions are complaining about power outages following the Ukrainian drone attacks. We are joined in the studio by Denis Popovich, a military analyst. Mr. Popovich, welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Popovich, Good
Afternoon, are you here?
Yes, and can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well too. Good afternoon.
All right, good afternoon. Then let's begin our conversation. We are now talking about our long-range strikes, deep strikes. If earlier there were only a few such strikes per week, then we started seeing daily reports from the armed forces and drone units that things are burning in Russia, and quite brightly at that. Now we see that the attacks are not only targeting oil refineries. The processing industry, which is also part of the military-industrial complex of the Russian Federation, because this oil fuels it. Russian tanks, Russian vehicles, and in this way they are able to maintain the pace of combat operations. Now we're talking about strikes on the Russian Federation's electrical substations. In other words, we see that Ukraine has started to respond in kind to the enemy. In your personal opinion, what do you think the potential impact or effect will such a double strike have?
I have a counter question. What effect does the enemy strike on our electrical substations have? The power goes out. So now we're going to turn off their power too. In my opinion, this is the right mirror-like action that should make Russians understand what war really is. They sit in front of their TVs watching this, hearing and seeing the news from their own war correspondents, from their own propagandists. How Ukrainian citizens suffer from strikes on the power grid, on power stations. Well, now let them feel it too. Besides the fact that this will put pressure, including on the civilian population of the Russian Federation, I want to emphasize that I am not calling for direct strikes on residential buildings. Under no circumstances should this be done, because then we would be acting just like the Russians do. We must not stoop to that level. But aside from such an impact, there is also an effect on the economy. We understand perfectly well that if there is no electricity, then in particular the railway, which uses electric traction, could also come to a halt. And if the railway stops, that's already logistics. And logistics has a direct impact on supplying the front lines. In addition, these are also blows to the economy. If there is no electricity, industry comes to a halt. When industry stops, everything else stops accordingly. Production also can have an impact on the front lines.
Mr. Popovich, will such strikes affect political stability in the Russian Federation?
If they are systematic, if they are combined with strikes on the oil refining sector, if they continue for months. If we strike the oil refining sector over the course of a month, it could have a comprehensive impact. But for now, we can't draw any conclusions since we've only just started hitting the energy infrastructure of the Russian Federation.
And can our long-range strikes, both those carried out on the oil refining complex and those targeting Russian energy infrastructure, actually force Russia to stop its attacks on our infrastructure? Is it possible that these actions could compel Russia to halt its ongoing assaults on our critical infrastructure?
Look, in theory, it is possible that they can, theoretically. Of course, if the Russian Federation comes forward with such proposals. But I don't think we should stop, because strikes on the oil refining sector are, in my opinion, a trump card in our hands. If we destroy the oil refining sector, which we are currently reducing to 23%, the oil refining capacity is halted due to our strikes, then this is the key to ending the war. Well, at least to ending the active phase of hostilities, because you can't conduct military operations without fuel. In any case, they won't be able to move their troops using horse-drawn transport.
Mr. Popovich, overall, how difficult is it to carry out simultaneous strikes on several targets, particularly energy facilities, especially in areas close to Moscow, to the Russian capital, considering the density of Russian air defense there?
You answered your own question. Since there is a dense air defense system, carrying out such strikes is difficult because the air defense is positioned there precisely to prevent such attacks. Therefore, of course, it is very difficult, especially if the airspace is well covered. And around Moscow, it is very well protected. There are Panzer systems, Asta systems, and S-400s deployed there. A very large number of anti-aircraft systems have been concentrated there.
Fighters from the main intelligence directorate, the Security Service of Ukraine, and the Foreign Intelligence Service destroyed a missile from the Russian Oreshnik complex on the territory of the Russian Federation during the night of July 8 to 9, 2024. As Vasil Malyuk noted, the operation was classified, and at the time, its results were reported only to the President of Ukraine and a few leaders of foreign states. Mr. Popovich, why are we only now hearing about this successful operation?
We can see that the nuclear rhetoric of the Russian Federation has intensified. He pulled out of his pockets, Putin, pulled out of his pocket Poseidon, pulled out of his pocket Stormtrooper. Big doubts whether he flew or not. That's another conversation. Pocket extract. The same Oreshnik, Lukashenko was there beating his fist on the table. On Friday, he said that when we hit, we'll hit hard. Together with Putin, we'll sit down and hit with that Oreshnik and so on. So obviously it's time to show that, as they say, this Oreshnik is quite a vulnerable system and it can be destroyed. This happened in the summer of last year, on the night of July 9th. The only thing is, well, this is my opinion, let's remember what happened on July 8th. There was the shelling of Akhmedit, with tragic consequences perhaps. They could have opened up this story with the connection on July 9th as well. But they opened it when they did, and in any case, we can be proud of the actions of our special forces, the JUR operatives, and the representatives of the SBU.
Mr. Popovich, thank you for joining us on the air. Denis Popovich, military analyst, was live with us in the studio.
SD-12.
12-й калібр.
Готовий?
Пустий.
Це продемонстрували стрільбу з гладкоствольної рушниці «Сафарі». Відстань приблизно 30 метрів через бар'єр дерев, гілок. Ефект стрільби. 2 патрона заряджені були, дроп номер 3. І одна кульова, подивіться, що зробило. Гладкоствольними рушницями в зеленці, в окопах працювати ефектно. Особливо, якщо стандартний патрон, який має 12 картечин, 9 мм, за кожний постріл вилітає 12 штук. Сама ефективність роботи в зеленці. Отам робота з такими рушницями, як «Сафарі», система Bullpup, має право на майбутнє. Для стрільби в льот вони мало ефективні, тому що неудобні. Сама мішень демонструє ефектність цих пострілів. 3 постріла з відстані 30 метрів. Ефект контакту так і десь проїсходить метрів 30-50. На цю відстань картеч буде досить ефективна. Що показує, покажіть, яка стіна зеленки. Це все пробивається і ефективно вражається мішень.
Оп!